game night, ageism, and 9 steps. That's what we're going to talk about today, and how to switch to a tech career in your 30s and 40s without going back to college. Thanks for joining and listening. Welcome to How to Switch to a Tech Career in Your 30s and 40s. It's the podcast where we love to get excited and down to brass tacks, talking about the real things that help you move the needle when you switch from any other career into a high-tech or IT career. And this is where we're going to discuss the real hints, tips, tricks, and the methods and the protocol that help you switch into a real tech career. So welcome. One of the things about Easter weekend is in April, and this year it was at the end of March. I don't know if you had to figure out your schedule again and make sure that things were lined up, but having Easter at the end of March seemed a little bit odd. Here in Minnesota, we had not a lot of snow the entire year, and you may know, I think we get an average of 54 inches of snow in the Twin Cities area. And this year, I don't know what we're at, but I would guess that we've only gotten, and I'm not even going to look it up, but I would guess we've gotten 10 inches total, which is a lot for some of you. If you are living in Phoenix, this is a lot. In Nashville, it's a lot. The weirdest thing about Easter was that it was, it was warmer here, warmer than it should have been. And today we're getting snow. I'm recording this in early April, a couple days after Easter. We're finally getting more snow. But I like talking about the weather. So I know that south of us in Iowa, there was a lot of snow this year. So we got dumped on in record-setting snow in 22 to 23. And 23 to 24, we got possibly record low levels of snow, but south of us in Iowa, where I used to live, it was record snow. All that to say that things are unpredictable, and if I may venture, before I go to our first topic, which is game night, if I may venture to say that anytime you hear about the tech marketplace, think of it as the weather. This isn't just a trick, a brain-bending exercise, but I think it's very valuable. You can predict the market. You can use the market as a reason to not do things, such as using the weather as a reason to not go out and take a walk because it's going to be cold or whatever. But in the end, you just never know what's going to happen with the weather. You can plan a vacation and it can be horrible weather taking off and coming back, or it can be better. You can plan to fly down to Florida from Minnesota here, and in Florida it's colder than the unseasonable warmth here in Minnesota. And you can get all upset about it, or you can just say, well, it's unpredictable. And the same goes with the market. You just have to keep pushing forward. The good news is there are a lot of people who are quitting looking for a job in the tech marketplace because they hear about the economy and the marketplace is tight right now or tough, and they can use that as an excuse. But you don't use that as an excuse. You use the excuse to keep pushing forward. The excuse is, I need a tech job. I need to get into this career. I need to get my foot in the door, or I need to level up. So just a little encouragement there that people like me who are in the tech marketplace and who understand what it's like to switch into it from another career, we do understand that we're going to persist. We're going to keep pushing forward because it's not up to everybody else. It's up to us. That is the key. And, I've brought it up before, but in the Tech Career Accelerator Academy and program, what I do is I ensure that we persist, and I make ways that we do that. One of the ways we do that is through the 9 steps, and we'll get to that. So first of all, let's talk about game night. Game night, if you have a family or you have a spouse, you have friends, essentially if you're not alone in a cave somewhere, which sometimes as developers, if you're heading into a programming job, you might feel like you're alone in a cave sometimes. But if you're not living completely alone as a hermit, you have some people around you, and I encourage you to do a game night. The reason for that is it encourages you. It works your brain a little, depending on which kinds of games. But it also gets you, especially if you are leaning into the tech sector, you may have sort of a personality that needs bending, stretching socially. And this is a side benefit of game nights is you learn how to work with other people, compete against people and still have fun with them. And not that getting into a tech job and a career is a game, but the similarities with daily life as a developer, QA, project manager, whatever you're getting into, the similarities between that and a game night, there are a few. You can draw some lines there. So I typically have game nights with my family, or I invite people from my church, or I invite neighbors, or the people I invite, I say, hey, bring your friends. We've had a lot of different types of groups over, and even my teens have invited other teens and college students over. But the point of the game nights is to open up the home and have some fun and also get to know people. So remember, this might be feeling like a game to you, like you have to win it. The entire switch to a tech career may feel like that, like you're competing and you just can't win. And the truth is, if you got your job, you probably felt, well, I won, great. But you're still going to try to level up. And it still is a game, and it never will end. It's possible it won't end until you retire or something like that. But it is not a game. It may feel like it, but here's what it really is. And this may be interesting to you. It is giving other people, what they need and what they want. And that is what it's all about. If you cannot provide other people what they want and to the level that they will pay you for it, then you just won't get a job unless there's some nepotism involved, which you can't help it if, your mom wants to hire you or your cousin wants to hire you. That's great. Go for it. But outside of that and the mob, outside of those two situations, it's somewhat about who you know. But if it's not about who you know, it's about how you can help those that you get to know. So whether you're in an interview or you are in a situation where a recruiter is talking to you, you're doing your best to give them what they want, what they need. Now, that's just the truth of it. Have you ever thought to yourself, I'm not good enough for this position? Have you ever thought, I don't have what it takes? Or you struggle with feeling like an imposter syndrome takes over? Well, instead of thinking and dwelling on that, that's kind of like blaming the marketplace or using the marketplace as an excuse. Instead of dwelling on that, not feeling good enough, dwell on the facts. I've mentioned it before, but in TCA, we talk about dealing with facts instead of feelings. That's why we do our daily KPIs and whatnot. But if you deal with facts, now all of a sudden you realize when you're going to apply to a job, the company is not trying to play a game. They are trying to get exactly what they need. If you don't have what they need, they will pass. Now, it's not always technical skills that they need, 100%. In fact, if you've done an interview before and gotten a position anywhere, A lot of it could have been based on your personality and how you deal with people. This all goes back to the game night and how you can help others have a good time and enjoy themselves while also giving them what they need and what they want. So if this sounds very salesy to you, that's probably and kind of greasy. That's possibly just because you've been focusing so much on technical skills that your soft skills need to be brushed up. And if it doesn't sound greasy and salesy, quote unquote, to you, then good. It's possible that you just need to keep working a little bit on your approach and maybe even some of your technical skills. And you could be on the other end of the spectrum where you think that you can just schmooze your way into a job, and you can delight people in interviews, and they'll overlook your lack of technical skills. And of course, we all know, especially by the way I just put that I don't think that's going to happen. And if it does, it probably won't last. So a game night. See if you can have a game night. And don't tell anybody your secret ambition is to get better at getting a tech job. Just see if it helps you. All right. So, and by the way, a lot of people in tech, they are gamers. So whether it be computer games or board games, and by the way, I'll keep saying that. I'll try to change that phrase. As a side note, when I talk about game nights, I talk about board game or card game nights, not just computer game nights. So that's a little different, but you could do that as well. Let's talk about ageism, the next topic. All right, this is a big one because obviously you are probably in your 30s or 40s or very close to that. You could be in your early 50s, mid 50s. You could be in your 60s. You could even be in your late 20s listening to this podcast. I think the data shows that most people, though, are probably in their 40s listening to this. So guess what? You are older than other people, and other people are competing for the job you want. So you're going to think, is ageism coming into play? Now, if you get a job, I don't think you'll be complaining about ageism. But if you don't get a job for a while, you've been applying for several months and you haven't gotten your job, the truth is, ageism is going to come to mind. Let me just encourage you that ageism, as I've seen in the tech space, ageism is not as big of a deal as you might think. In fact, I kind of feel sorry for people who are in their 20s because they may be not considered as much, especially for certain roles, than people like around the same age as you if you're in your 30s and 40s. So being in your 30s tends to be the place where you've got some experience under your belt in life and with some jobs. And then in your 40s tends to be where you are looked at sort of as you could start to mentor other people. And I think in your 50s, you typically get looked at as, okay, you're kind of a master of this, and you can definitely lead and pass on, hold the baton and pass it to others, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're in your 30s and 40s, you will get these doubts. And I just want to tell you that in my experience and the experience I've seen in those I've helped, ageism is not as big of a deal as people usually think. And the only reason it comes up is when the people I've helped don't get their jobs. And all of a sudden they'll get a job and realize, oh, my age actually helped me. So some of the benefits of hiring a person who's in their 30s, even in 40s, is they have the ability to have a little more wisdom, patience, dealing with others. There's less of a feeling of climbing the ladder. There could be. And especially if you're switching from another career, it depends what kind of career you've had outside of tech. Okay? So this could come into play and be a very, very strong factor that others consider when you apply to positions. For example, if you came from an organizational leadership position, maybe you're in retail and you're a floor manager, and then you're trying to get into QA or cybersecurity. So there's a scenario there. Your background as in retail as like a floor manager, or maybe you're in car sales or something like that. That comes into play. The hiring manager will look at that and say, okay, you have some leadership skills. You've dealt with people. And in tech, you deal with people as well. So someone who is in their early 20s or just graduated, they just don't have probably that same background and years of experience in that. So let your soft skills comfort you, and even some technical skills you've gained along the way. Use the years you've had to ramp up into a tech career. Use those in your mind to comfort yourself. Because ageism is probably just a hot topic and not that big of a deal. Are there cases where ageism has occurred and has been actionable in courts of law, such as someone gets sued for hiring people only under a certain age? I'm sure it has, but I have not experienced that. And if I have, I don't know it. So all the same, right? I've had success, and I keep having some success, and I just want to encourage you in that way. 9 steps. I want to quickly go over the 9 steps in the Tech Career Accelerator program. And this is a method that I call it metallurgy method. Now, if you've talked to me before, if you've had a free consultation, you'll know that this comes from the idea I had when people were digging up part of a schoolyard. That I live next to a schoolyard, and they were digging that up, and they were creating holes in the field. There's like a small football field out there that I'm sure used to get used a lot more. But still digging it up and leaving holes, and I thought that's kind of weird. And then at the end of my walk, I circled back, did like a mile walk. I'm coming back, and I notice the places where the holes were dug up before and little piles of dirt, those are filled in now, and they look like nothing happened. So then I realized what the man had. It was laying down on the ground, so I couldn't see it the first time. He had a metal detector. So he must have gotten permission to do some metal detecting and dig up and look for metals and jewelry that way. And I thought, that's exactly what it feels like when I've had this method in place. It feels like I kind of know how to look for jobs in the marketplace and how to go through the process instead of just randomly looking all around at all the jobs. And so this is why it's called the metallurgy method. So the first step in this is metal detect. And that is to really master the market, look at what's out there, evaluate your own skills, tap into tomorrow's talents, like look at what you could get quickly and apply to the jobs you could get today. So these first foot in the door jobs, apply to them and get some feedback, and then listen to money. So realize that jobs can pay you a lot of money in tech, and more than you might think. But at the same time, because of that, you might look at a job that pays a decent amount, but it's easier for you to get than the dream job you want. And if you can get a job sooner than later and replace your current income or current situation where you've got kind of a dead-end job, the sooner you can get rid of that and onto any tech career, it's going to save you money and hassle in the long run. So master the market, evaluate your skills, tap tomorrow's talents, apply to today's jobs, and listen to money. And if you're smart, you figured out those first words spell metal. Pretty tricky there. And then we have job hacking, and that is a reverse engineering of those jobs. We have risk recycler. That's how to make sure that you don't lose relationships and family and your current job while you're looking for your next one. And then we have pro performance. It's step 4. That's doing projects for yourself or pro bono for others, or even getting paid by others. Pro stands for pro bono or professional, getting paid. Then we have the P3 diagnostic, which is a resource that I use to help people understand why they're frustrated. If you've ever been stuck or frustrated, this would be good for you. And if you want this little graph, just email info@techlead.com, TEKLEED.com, info@techlead.com. And then there's lingo lockdown. I got interviewed once and didn't know all the terms, and I was embarrassed, and it kind of threw the interview. So I don't want you to go through that. You need to know the terms in the industry. And then we have resume refinery. A lot of people start with a resume, and I almost end with it in my program. Linked leads using LinkedIn, and then assisting recruiters. Giving recruiters what they want will help you. So that's the 9 steps. And if you want that little chart, just email info@techlead.com. So today's episode has been going through game night, ageism, and 9 steps, and I hope that it was really helpful to you. And if it was, I'm always open for comments. You can email me at info@techlead.com. And still, there's time for you to request a free book. Go back a couple episodes in the podcast, and you'll see that episode. You'll know how to do it if you listen to that episode two shows ago. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time. I appreciate you, the listener. You took time to join this podcast and listen to the things that I've said. So I want to just say thank you. If you check the show notes, you will notice a couple links there. And one of them is to be an interviewee on this podcast. You can do it using your name. We can interview you, give you some coaching. You can also do that interview anonymously with an ID so that you won't be found out at your current job. So we want to be sensitive to you in that way, but also give you some help. So check the link for that application and for other free information. Join us next time. Thanks again for listening.